Point is fantastic too, Charlie. Thanks for asking.
Sorry?
Point is fantastic too.
Oh, well, you always say that. Being an ex-rower, I know that. Noddy. My first education, Knock Academy. So there you are.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Trust the technology is working and you're all hearing me. My lips are moving and therefore must be speaking, so I hope you can get me okay. I will go through some of the formalities shortly, but at the moment, can I ask you all to mute your microphones, please, before we begin, and I'll invite Councillor Charlie Nicholson to lead us in a word of prayer.
Our Lord and God, we just thank you as we come before you on this day, Lord. And as we start another week of meetings, we ask you, Father, to be with us. We pray, Lord, for our convener and our leader, our chief executive, director, staff and councillors. And we also pray for our community at this time with the different challenges that we have. We thank you, Lord, that thou art the shepherd, that thou art the refuge and strength, that thou art the one that is beside us and around us in the different challenges of the day. And we just thank you, Lord, for everything that thou does for us. And as we come to committee today, Lord, we pray for wisdom and direction in the different discussions, reports and deliberations that we will have. And we look to you in everything. We pray especially just now, Lord, for our teachers and the education department and all those involved as our schools go back. We ask you, Lord, to be with all those that are involved in the schools. We ask you, Father, to bless all the children and to keep them safe, and to have that refuge and strength and safeness as they go back. And we also pray today, Father, and we bring them before you again for our emergency services. We pray for the police and for the fire services. We ask you to be with them and be with them as they report today and all the work that they do with the emergency services in our community. And we just bring before you the Western Isles, Lord. We bring before you the nation of Scotland and the UK. And we pray for the governments in London and in Edinburgh, and to be with all those that have to make decisions in the challenges that we have during this COVID time. We thank you, Lord, for the community that we're involved with, and all those that have a caring profession, Lord. All those that are out serving in the different areas of the islands here. We ask you to bless the health services, Lord, the community carers, all those involved helping. So bless us now, Lord, and be with those that mourn today, Lord, those that have lost loved ones. Thou art the one that can give the comfort. Thou art the one that's beside them. Thou art the one that can bless them. So, Lord, shine on us today. Bless us in everything that we do. We bring everything before you, because thou art the one that is the way, the truth, and the life. So bless us now, and be with our chair as he leads the meeting. Bless all those that we love, wherever they may be in the world at this time, and we leave everything in thy hands. Forgive our many sins, even this very day, Lord, and we leave everything with thee. So bless us now, in Jesus' precious name, and for his sake and glory. Amen.
Amen indeed. Thank you very much, Councillor Nicholson. A few of the usual formalities. Forgive me if most of it is familiar to you, but there is one difference, so if you would note what I'm just about to advise. Please ensure your microphone is switched off normally if you are not speaking in order to prevent background noise. I will call on the relevant officer to present the report. If a member of our officer wishes to ask a question, if they use the raise your hand function, and it will be brought to my attention. Invite each member in the queue to speak, and then if you will switch on your microphone and your camera if bandwidth allows that to happen. After you have spoken, remember to lower your hand and put your microphone off. The device should be positioned so that your image is clear to other participants and to any others watching in. When calling for agreement of the recommendations at each item, a no show of raised hands will be taken as an indication of committee approval. In regard to declarations of interest, members are reminded of the protocol, that is that you must leave the meeting by ending the call, which will be confirmed by the moderator to the chair. And following consideration of the item, you will be invited back into the meeting by the moderator. Reminder, please ensure that you are available to accept the invitation to rejoin. Now, this particular committee, unlike the previous ones, this committee is being live streamed and recorded. So just remind members that the meeting is being live streamed and it is being recorded. And recording will be available on the Council's website in due course. So before we begin the meeting, I'd like to welcome Mr. Nick Fairs to his first meeting of the committee. Mr. Fair has recently been appointed to the post of Chief Officer Health and Social Care and has over 14 years experience in NHS and social care. His background spans operational management, both in acute and community provision, commissioning and tertiary hospital delivery. He also has experience of service evaluation and redesign and workforce planning and development. We welcome you, Nick, to the CORLA and very much look forward to working with you. So there was just in regard to the area of service, there was, just to remind members, there was an agenda item. We were unable to get the written report, so I am ruling that be taken off the agenda today, and I'll be requesting a written report be circulated as soon as possible, just to give us that update. We move on to the minute of the meeting of 26th of January, and it is there for approval. I content with the minute and happy to have that recorded as approved. Thank you very much, committee. The second item, the minute of the meeting of the 23rd of February, it is there for your approval. If you're content with that minute, and no indications of dissent, so I will regard that as approval. Now, we come to the actual declaration of interest. Reminder, members are asked to declare any interest they have in any items of the agenda in which they potentially have to declare an interest in terms of our working protocols. It would be helpful if members expressed why they are declaring an interest in the item concerned. If you wish to declare any interest, please do so now by raising your hand. I'm seeing a couple of Councillor Ian M. MacLeod.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I declare an interest tonight to me, just being a member of the TIG board.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor MacLeod. Councillor Roddy Mackay.
I also declare an interest tonight to meet as a member of the TIG board.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Mackay. And see Councillor Macmillan.
Thank you, Chairman. I will be declaring an interest in item 6. My wife is an employee of the CORLA and employed part-time in the Economic Development Department. So I'll be leaving the meeting for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Macmillan. Councillor Fulton.
Yeah, I'm also declaring an interest. I'm a member of TIG board as well.
Okay. So everyone, as always, if you become aware that you may have an interest in the ongoing discussion as we progress through the agenda, you are requested to make that known before the item comes up. So thank you very much for that, and these are noted. I think we have an apology for Councillor Keith Dodson. Yeah. So we'll just note that. Item 3 on the agenda is the appointment of Vice Chair. As you know, Councillor Paul Steele has recently been appointed to Chair of Education, Sport and Children's Services Committee. And can I say with all sincerity that I really enjoyed working with Paul and very much benefited from his input, from his perspective in his own community. And we both joined the council as new members in 2017. I had the benefit of almost 40 years experience in local government, and Paul came in very fresh into it, but soon became an established member. And I not only regard him as a colleague, but as a friend since I came to know him. And his contribution was, and his support of me as chair, I really do want to acknowledge that. At very short notice, at times he stepped in. And also when, as chair, I was unable to be attending meetings and having a presence in the Southern Isles, Paul was always willing and very, very effectively represented the committee and myself in the situation. So I really do want to record my thanks to him for all these things. And I am absolutely certain that his drive and dedication will be of immense benefit to his new role in his chair. So I wish him well in that and thank him for his past service. The procedure for chair and vice chair normally is by secret ballot, and what I propose is that if we have a number of nominations, that we determine that by email submission to Fiona, who will acknowledge and record the nominations. That's if we have more than one nomination for the chair. I don't know, do you want to say anything on the process, Derek? Or?
Nothing really to say in the process. If there is more than one nomination, you may wish to follow the normal rules of debate, although those proposed for the office would have a right to speak immediately after the proposer and seconder, or you may wish to go straight to the ballot.
Okay. Well, we may not have a need to do that. So can I just open the floor and call for nominations for vice chair of the committee? I see Councillor Charlie Nicholson.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to bring up the point before you went to that section to ask Chair, rather than email, surely we can just nominate when the nomination comes, just do a vote like we've done over the last number of months.
Are you suggesting a roll call vote? Is the committee content with a roll call vote? I have hands up, which I'm not sure at. Can you lower your hands at the moment? So the proposal is for a roll call vote. If anyone is unhappy with that, can they so indicate? Okay, so I take it you're all content with a roll call vote. Thank you very much for that, members. Can I then ask for nominations? I'm seeing Councillor Angus Morrison.
Yes, Chair. Could I propose Councillor Ray Mackenzie?
And is there a seconder for Councillor Mackenzie?
Yes, Chair. That's Councillor MacLeod.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Chair. And just I would like to note my thanks for your very kind words. Very much appreciated. Could I nominate Councillor Ian MacLeod?
Is there a seconder for that?
I don't know if I can second that, Chair.
Are you a member of the committee?
No, I'm not. So just I have to be a member, yeah.
Okay.
Chair, I second that.
Okay. Convener. Are there any other nominations? Okay, we have two nominations. Then we have Councillor Ian MacLeod and Councillor Ray Mackenzie. Now, just remind myself, I think the protocol is for the proposers to speak in favour of the member that they've proposed for the chair. So the first one was Councillor Angus Morrison, who was proposing Councillor Ray Mackenzie. So Councillor Morrison, for just a couple of minutes, is it?
You can say it.
I think if we're going to be as brief as we can, but obviously happy for you to fully support the person proposing.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it as brief as I possibly can. I mean, I've known Ray now this is my second term in council, and when I was canvassing and campaigning myself for the first term, the very first time I met Ray in an election campaign was when he was trying to contest my seat in Lochs area by trying to put somebody in. I've known Ray since then. I've known him before then in an official capacity through work. He's someone who's committed to the cause, and the reason I raised that in the very beginning when I met him. When I met him, he was going round door to door campaigning, obviously for his party, but he still had the integrity to wish me well and to support what I was doing as well. And I found Ray to be diligent in everything he's done, and I feel that he's committed to everything that he puts himself forward for. And I genuinely think that he would be a good vice chair and a good support to you as chair too. So I propose and I fully support Councillor Ray Mackenzie for vice chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we now move to the proposer of Paul Steele, as you are proposing, Councillor Ian MacLeod. So do you wish to speak in support of that nomination?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll try and keep it brief. Councillor MacLeod, like me, was one of the new councillors elected in 2017, and since then he's been a great support throughout that period. He's involved in the budget board within the council, and he's on the planning applications board as well. With that, he's a TIG board member and quite very active with the Youth Economic Task Force Working Group. One of Ian's main mantras is data, 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 and I think in the role of vice chair, he will bring that attention to detail and professionalism to that role and to support you as much as he can. I found the role of vice chair extremely beneficial personally. It allowed me to develop my understanding of how the core and committee system works, and I think this would be a great opportunity for Ian as a new councillor to get even more experience and to support yourselves in the committee in the... And that's me, thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if there's any other microphones open. Can you just check your microphones, please, colleagues? And I think now go to Councillor John Norman MacLeod, who's seconder for the nomination of Councillor Ray Mackenzie. So, John Norman.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, Ray asked if I would second, which I said yes, no, absolutely no problem at all, because we all know Ray. He's been around for quite a few years. In fact, I would say he's up there with the most experienced of all councillors. We don't always agree with his opinions, but he does have opinions, and he's very, very good at historical things that have happened in the council in years gone by. So I find that he would be a good vice chair, especially coming into communities and housing with all the changes regarding what's happening in health and social care and HHP, etc. So it's good that with his experience, he would be a very good vice chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor MacLeod. Convener, no. Convener. Now, the seconder for Councillor Ian MacLeod was the convener, so can I invite the convener to address the committee?
Thank you very much, Chair, and I too will try and be brief in terms of this. I think we've seen in Councillor Paul Steele's role within the committee and the work that he's done and pushed forward in US. I think what I would prefer is some continuity of that and to spread the load across the islands. And I think it's really important, as you said yourself, Chair, in applauding Paul's work. I think it's really important that we have people in within the chairmanship of the committees to be able to advance the cause of housing and many other issues in the Southern Isles, not exclusively in the Southern Isles. I would have to say, but I think Ian has showed in the last. Since he became in the council this term, I think he's shown commitment, and he also shows bullish. I'm not quite sure how best to put this, but he makes himself heard, and he makes very clear points when it comes to debate in committee. So I have no hesitation in recommending Councillor Ian MacLeod for the role of Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you very much, Convener. And now we go to those who have been proposed. So can I ask Councillor Ray Mackenzie to speak first?
Thank you, Chairman. Well, fellow members, the only time I've actually spoken on my own behalf before was when I stood against the convener. I'm disappointed that he's on the other side today. I've been asked to put my name forward for the Vice Chair of this committee. As you yourself mentioned, Chair, I was the chair of the predecessor committee for this committee when it was called Consumer Protection and Environmental Services. I've also obviously got knowledge of this committee. I've been chair of other council committees in the past, and I've supported projects across all the islands. I don't favour any particular section of the island. But most recently, at the recent budget, for instance, in Newest and Barra, the abattoirs, the dental chair, discretionary fares on the Sounds of Harris and Barra, I supported the retention of ear services for Benbecula and Barra in the past, even helping to organise a petition to save these at a time when they were threatened. Recently also, I supported a motion for extra money for surface dressing of roads, which of course affects the whole island. I've long fought, as people know, for facilities for the Stornoway Primary here, and also for the retention of Sandwich School. I'm sure you all have heard me over and over again on that particular point. I even fought for the establishment of Cornynellan, which is now Cornynellan Shire, before it existed. And I'm the longest serving councillor ever on this council. And the last one serving from the original council. Having been elected, I'm very grateful for that, elected 9 times. There was a conscious effort from the outset, which I supported, to bring all these islands together, and not just physically. I still hope that's the driving force in the council, that we all pull together. So I have the experience and agree. Well, whether I have the ability, that's up to you to decide. But I would want to say, first of all, to pay tribute to Paul Steele in his role in this particular vice chairmanship. And I agree with your sentiments. And if elected, I hope, Chairman, you will feel the same about me as you felt about Paul Steele. I'd like to thank Angus as well for proposing me and Corax for seconding. As I say, I've been around a long time, but only you can decide on my ability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mackenzie. Now, Councillor Ian MacLeod, if you would like to address the committee.
Thank you, Chair. When I was elected in May 2017, of course, it was a rather sharp learning curve coming to the Corlia, and in the first few weeks and months, there was a lot to take in on how the Corlia operated and their committee systems. And at that time, there was no real desire without that knowledge to take a leap to be chair or vice chair of any committee. Now this opportunity to step up to vice chair has come up. I think it will further enhance my knowledge of how the committee structures work. And I think having the chair of committee from the Lewis and Harris area and the vice chair from Uist and Barra area of the islands will give us a balanced coverage across the whole of the Corlia area. I mean, I declared an interest in TIG earlier. I'm not actually a TIG representative on the council. It's actually as a community representative of the council. You know, I've taken a keen interest in housing and energy efficiency programs there. Over the last couple of years, housing, and particularly affordable housing, has been subject to a lot of discussion by various groups and community bodies. It just seems to be at the forefront of what we need to do. And no doubt it is key to population attention on these islands. And we are suffering from a lack of affordable housing to keep our young folk here. We all know the demographics of our population is not in our favour at the moment, and we've got to try and stem the exodus of these young families from the Western Isles. I mean, in news back in 2019, we formed a Youth and Barra housing group, and there was a well-attended housing seminar to try and gain some traction and investigate different options and ideas to improve on the lack of affordable housing. These initiatives and others, like the Rural Housing Scotland programme of Smart Clachans, and we've got the Southern School of Architecture and Build Environment from Robert Gordon University master students having their final projects based and used, are helping to move some of these ideas forward. I think we've been reasonably fortunate here in the Western Isles to have a reasonably large application of money for housing over the last few years. And we're now starting to see the benefits of that with new housing being built across the area. But we need to be ready, along with our RSL partners, you know, for the next tranche of money coming from the Scotland 20-year Vision for Housing programme, or the Housing to 2040, as it's known. That was announced mid-March this year. Undoubtedly, we need high-quality, energy-efficient homes that are affordable, that meets the needs of our communities. And we need to ensure our strategic housing investment plan is, if you pardon the pun, ship and ready to take full advantage of all funds available to us. I'd like to thank Paul Steele, of course, for nominating me and the convener for seconding it. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor MacLeod. Now leave it open to members of the committee if they wish to say anything. I can see Councillor Gordon Murray first. Councillor Murray.
Thanks, Chair. First of all, I'd like to congratulate both candidates for stepping up for the position of Vice Chair. I have to say they're both excellent candidates. However, I know Ray a lot better than Ian due to working with him over the number of years. I've learned a lot from Ray. He's got a wealth of experience. He's worked on all different kinds of committees. He's worked with a lot of people with different opinions and still seems to command a lot of respect. And in order to do that, you need to have extraordinary people skills, which I believe he really does in working with people with different opinions. I'm sure we could all learn to have better people skills such as Ray. And I think that this is a great opportunity for the committee and him. As I say, Ian's a great candidate as well, so the committee's very lucky. But I would be supporting Ray Mackenzie. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Murray. Anyone else wishing to come in? No. Okay, so I think we just, well, can I just maybe... you can ask if they just want to come in, try and word, so I'll go straight to the vote. Yes, I mean, normal debating procedure, the proposer do have a right to come back to add to what they've already said, or we could alternatively dispense with that and simply move straight to the vote. So can I ask the two proposers, and that was Councillor Angus Morrison and Councillor Paul Steele, do you wish to say anything, or do we? Are you content to just to move to the vote? If I see no hands showing, I'll take it that you're content to just move to the vote. Okay, thank you. So can I just say, just on my own behalf, that two excellent candidates, and I think the fact that we have nomination from UIST, and I already said that the benefit of having Paul Steele there was considerable to me as the chair in the representational role that he fulfilled there. I also recall from my fresh-faced days as a young trainee environmental health officer in the council, a certain Councillor Ray Mackenzie who was there then. So there's absolutely no doubt whatsoever the breadth of experience that Councillor Mackenzie brings in the proposer, in the proposal to have him as vice chair, and certainly that experience would be of immense benefit as well. So if you're content, then there's no other person wanting to come in. We're happy just to move to the vote. So Derek, will you just call the roll? And
I'll call the roll, and if members can indicate whether they're voting for Ray Mackenzie or Ian M. MacLeod. So Chair
Mackenzie.
Paul Steele.
Ian MacLeod.
Colin McMillan.
Mackenzie.
Ian M. MacLeod.
MacLeod.
Yeah. Paul Finnegan.
MacLeod.
John Mitchell.
Mackenzie.
Angus Morrison.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Norman A. MacDonald.
MacLeod.
Finlay Stewart.
MacLeod.
Ray Mackenzie.
Mackenzie.
Charlie Nicholson.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Neil Mackay.
Mackenzie.
Roddy Mackay. So, leader.
MacLeod.
Gordon Murray.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Colin McLean.
Councillor Mackenzie.
And John Norman MacLeod.
Councillor Mackenzie.
There's 10 votes for Councillor Mackenzie, 6 votes for Councillor MacLeod.
Thank you very much. Congratulate Councillor Mackenzie on being elected to the vice chair. I think either candidate would have been of immense benefit to the committee and the work of the committee. But I think with his breadth of experience, Councillor Mackenzie will certainly be a huge benefit to the committee and to me personally as well in my role as chair. So congratulations on that. I think if we just move to the item, Councillor MacLeod.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to congratulate Ray on his appointment to Vice Chair. Well done, Ray.
And Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you, Chairman, for your word. I'm sure we'll work well together. And to Ian, he's got time to come, and I'm sure he'll be he'll be a chairman one day. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you very much. So we move to item 5 on the agenda. That's the performance management reports. The first one is for consumer and environmental services. There's the housing and there's municipal services to follow. So, Mr. McKeever.
Thank you, Chairman. The report is at item E5A on your agenda, and as you said, Chair, the two relevant items for this committee are consumer and environmental services and housing services. Consumer and environmental services at 6.1 in the report. The key areas of work for the service over the past period has been, as you would anticipate, in regard to COVID-related work and work related to EU exit. COVID-related work has seen the service focusing in on giving advice, support and guidance to businesses and community organisations as we move through the various tiers of the coronavirus lockdown regulations. and similarly supporting food and drink businesses, in particular around EU exit issues. General service work has also continued, and the service has dealt with 250 general inquiries, so a lot of activity going through the service area. Section 7.1 deals with housing services. The key area of priority has remained the affordable housing programme and the homelessness service. In regard to affordable housing, in the present programme, 112 units have been completed, 167 units are presently on site, and 22 units are going through assessment and hopefully will move into development in the not too distant future. We had been, and the committee has briefly discussed in the past, short-term let accommodation regulation. We had been anticipating the legislation being completed by the Scottish Government early in the new year, with the guidance coming out behind that. We've now been informed by the Government that the guidance won't be available until later in the summer, and we will report as appropriate to committee when that guidance is available and recommend actions around that guidance. 10.1 of the report outlines where we are in regard to finance, and I anticipate the services coming in on budget, if not ahead of budget. There have been no complaints in the quarter, Chairman, and I'm happy to take any questions in regard to the report.
Thank you very much, Mr. McKeever. Committee, any comments or questions on the Director's report? Councillor Colm McLean.
Thanks, Chair. I don't know if it's appropriate to take it up here, but I'm just noticing that in the environmental management, we seem to be under budget as we do under consumer and environmental services. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing in many ways. However, there are a number of issues in our community, and these are that there are quite a lot of, how can I put it, unsightly areas of our communities where there are, I don't know, I seem to have seen it, an increase in abandoned cars or wrecked cars, vans that aren't roadworthy, are left on pavements. I see that as I go up, particularly in the Cairns area of the town. Down a roadway, I see caravan sites looking pretty awful, and yet we're under budget. Can Mr. McKeever give me any indication of whether this comes under environmental management or environmental services, and what can be done about these unsightly things in our community?
Mr. McKeever?
Yes, elements of that would fall under consumer and environmental services. The first thing I would say, it is the community's own responsibility. I mean, if people are abandoning vehicles, that is the responsibility of the vehicle owner in the first place. And individuals in the community have a responsibility to look after their own environment and their own community. Out with that, there are certain elements of legislation and guidance that we can put in place. There are certain ways we can enforce elements of guidance and legislation to bring individuals, businesses, community groups into compliance with certain legislation. So yes, elements of this area do come under the service, and if Mr. McLean has got particular areas he'd want to discuss, happy to do that out with the meeting. The service, like every other service in the Corria, is aware of the challenging financial times we are in, so they are trying their best to avoid unnecessary spend where possible and try and bring their budgets in below budget, if at all possible, recognising the financial challenge in front of the Corria.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Mr. McKeever, for that. I will be getting in touch with you. I've been in touch on and off with environmental services about a serious condition down here and back, but there doesn't seem to be a solution to that. But however, when I go around the town of Stornoway, particularly, and I'm not a Stornoway councillor, but I happen to be going in that area, I would say that there is a number of vans and abandoned cars on the roads and in parking places that should not be. They are unsightly, and does it need the likes of a councillor to actually inform you of that? Are the environmental services not more proactive in finding out for themselves what on earth is happening?
Thank you very much, Councillor McLean. Of course, we are the eyes and ears of the council in our communities as well. And you're right. I mean, if there's been items reported, then I would expect officers to follow that up. But I would think it would be, if you have specific examples, I think it would be better to deal with these out with the committee and maybe contact the director following the meeting. But I would hope and expect that any notification of any illegality will be followed up, subject to COVID restrictions, of course, under the present circumstances. Councillor Charlie Nicholson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Director, for the report. Again, it's on the basis of under budget and environmental services. Director, could some of that money not be given to Waste Aware, because they're under a severe pressure just now in regards to community skips? And I'm led to believe that 4 or 5 of the community skips have been withdrawn because they're not fit for purpose, and it is affecting the community skips going out to community on rotation. Could that not be done to support Waste Aware and the environmental issues that Mr. McLean and other members have brought up over the last number of months? They did seemingly have some money given to them to replace these, but that's, I'm led to believe, been withdrawn. So therefore, we can't replace the community skips at present, and if there's an underspend, surely that could go over to help the communities from Barra to Ness, Director.
Community skips are the responsibility of municipal services, which will fall under the Transport and Infrastructure Committee. However, I'll be happy to have a look to see, you know, is there something that could be done in that area. In regard to consumer and environmental services, given, you know, the potentials still to arise from COVID and the potential support that we may have to put in place to support EU exit issues, I'll be slightly reluctant to move budget in that way at this stage, but certainly happy to keep that under review and speak to the 2 service managers to see what can be achieved further in these areas.
Thank you very much, Director.
Thank you, Mr. McKeever. Thank you.
Councillor Norman MacDonald.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, can I support Colin McLean in his endeavours to tidy up what appears to be several significant eyesores around the island? I noticed them as well in areas where HHP may have some jurisdiction. I'm not entirely sure. Is it incumbent upon them to keep their own properties up to a standard of, I don't know, cleanliness and safety, I would say, are an issue as well. Because these old rusting hulks lying about the place must be some kind of danger to small children who go and play amongst them, etc. And I know there are issues with the uplift and disposal of old cars, etc., when it comes to having to get their oil, etc., drained and batteries taken out, and there's a cost involved in all this. But more and more we're seeing our island turning into an island of rust. I think it was Jonathan Meads who described it as such a long time ago, but that was probably in relation to corrugated sheds. But there is a cost involved in disposing of old cars, scrap, etc. We have, I think, a recycling area out at Creed Park, which is probably, again, it'll be a privately owned thing. Is there any kind of money available for a lorry to go around I don't know, have we any jurisdiction over somebody's private property? Because a lot of these areas are private property where somebody, we seem to have several individuals across all our islands who seem to think that the accumulation of rust around the house is some kind of tokenism. I'm not entirely sure what it is. Maybe they sell second-hand parts for whatever. I don't know, but it's hugely unsightly, and we keep referring back to the importance of tourism, etc. But it's a blight on our own doorstep. Suppose we're not tourists, never visit these islands. We drive past this nonsense every single day of our lives, and it's hugely unsightly and a blight on our islands. And if there's something that can be done, some coordinated response to this, where we can uplift these horrendous just rubbish lying around the place and put them somewhere where they can be safely disposed of. I don't know if we have the money to set aside anything for a project of such, that would do such a thing. But I support Colin McLean, and I'm sure many, the 31 of us have probably seen what's going on around the place, and it's a blight on our islands. And if something can be done to remove it, I'd be fully supportive.
Thank you very much, Councillor McDonald. I'm not sure if I would agree that we're going to revert it back to our island of rust, because at one time we had an immense problem of abandoned vehicles, but subsequent to that, there was legislation introduced that made the responsibility for the disposal of cars at the end of their life back to the motor industry, and there is a scheme whereby people can have their vehicles uplifted. Now, if people choose to break up their cars and then just discard those bits that they no longer want, I think that firmly relies, with the owner who's chosen to take that route. I'm not sure that offering an uplift service will be encouraging those people in the future to act responsibly if they think that the council will simply pick up the tab for it. So I would certainly encourage our officers to make sure that people are meeting their legal obligations to dispose of their vehicles at the end of life in a legal way, and but certainly don't want to see the proliferation of more abandoned cars, and I agree that it does appear that there have been more cases recently. Perhaps it's something that we could take back to a member of the working group just to see. Post-COVID, there's going to be a lot of issues, I think, that we need to be looking at and prioritising, and perhaps in the informal surroundings of a member of the working group initially to see where we go on that. But of course, officers have got that increased burdens, as the director said, as a consequence of Brexit, and I do have sympathy with them for the tremendous amount of additional work and planned work they have now to undertake as well. So. But I think it's something certainly that we could have further discussion on prior to coming to a committee with a formal report in future. Councillor Nicholson, do you want to come back?
Thank you, Chair. And just to say, Chair, Environmental Service and Waste Aware are very supportive and excellent in the support of taking vehicles away. In my first level areas, the officers are really, really good, and if you report and work through the system, they are taken away. And if they don't look after the situation, then they're taken away, and there is a bill gone out to the person or family involved. So I've had really good service in my area in regards to environmental services and waste aware staff. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that feedback, Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Finnegan.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I was just to ask the director. There was previously there was a scheme when I moved here to the islands. I can remember there was a scheme here which made a massive difference to carbon uplift. Any idea what the cost of running that was at all at that time?
I think, Councillor Finnegan, that was probably the statutory car take-back scheme, where the responsibility and the responsibility for costs was put on to the motor industry itself. Prior to that, there was no such scheme. So there is a legal requirement on the motor industry to pick up the end-of-life vehicles. But I think what people tend to do is they start breaking them up into pieces and take away or sell anything that's of worth. Then the scheme, I think, is more difficult because it's not whole cars, and I think the scheme is to take back whole cars. So therein lies the difficulty. But I think we could have maybe, as I suggested, we could have some further discussion on how we can tackle this emerging concern, and I think it is an emerging concern with increased numbers of abandonment.
And can I just come back again? So how did that work exactly in terms of, if the motor industry was, obviously it was, who was lifting the cars? It was a council that was lifting the cars, wasn't it?
No. The responsibility was on the motor industry to arrange for the uplift and for taking them to depolluting centres, and then they could be crushed or they could be taken off the island as whole cars. But I think we could get some further information from those officers who are direct involvement in that, and perhaps at the next MOUD we could have a report for consideration on that and how we best tackle that, if that's okay with you colleagues.
Yes, happy Chair to take some report back to the Member Officer Working Group, which will include the financial considerations of introducing any additional services.
Thank you very much, Director. Members, are content with that we're not leaving this by any means, that we get it addressed in the Member Officer Working Group initially, and then we'll see what needs to come back to committee on that. If you're content with that. Okay, thank you. Well, the performance monitoring, unless anyone's got any other question on the report, insofar as the committee's interests are concerned, the members agree to note the report. Thank you, colleagues. Item 6 on the agenda is report on performance management from Economic Development and Planning, insofar as it impacts on the work of this committee. Mr. McPhee is there to speak to the report.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The report is at 6C, and in terms of the committee, paragraph 6.1 of the report highlights the activities in the library's service. So we continue to deliver online outreach activities and an e-library offering, and of course the Connect and Collect service, and a range of activities to support people across the islands. Happy to take any sort of specific questions that members have on the activities.
Members? No, nothing on that. Okay, thank you very much. So insofar as the committee's interests are concerned, members agree to note the report. Thank you very much, colleagues. Now, item 7, we did not have a report on that, and as I've indicated at the beginning of the meeting, that item is being withdrawn. I would hope that members would be circulated with a written report as soon as that can be available, just so that we can have some detail of how the services are performing, particularly in the circumstances of stress and pressure under the COVID restrictions and demands. So I would be looking to Mr. Bayers to provide us with a written report as soon as practically possible on that, and that be circulated. Mr. Fairs, do you want to come in? I think you're on mute, Nick.
Apologies, yes, wrong button here. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and yes, I will confirm that I'll circulate a full written report so members can be aware of the current situation, particularly as we continue to respond to the COVID kind of pandemic, which I anticipate will probably be impacting us until June or July of this kind of year. So yeah, very happy to undertake that.
Much.
Thank you.
I suspect that COVID fallout will be with us for a long time beyond that as well. So item, sorry, yeah, see, beg your pardon, Councillor Murray and then Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Chair. It was just a quick point. It's the first time I've seen Mr. Fairs, so I just wanted to congratulate him on his new post and look forward to working with him in the future. Thanks.
Indeed. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I would like to endorse what Mr. Murray has said, but could I put a question to you yourself as chair regarding care, Chair? And can I first of all say that the care workers have been under an awful lot of stress, and they've done a tremendous amount of work over the past weeks and months and year almost, and possibly past it, due to COVID. And I would say to us that as a committee, we should thank them for all that they have done in such circumstances. But in particular, I would like to draw your attention to employees' conditions of work. And would you agree that...
Can I just interrupt there, Councillor McLean? Conditions of service are not a matter for this committee, and since I've indicated that the agenda item, because of the lack of the report, is not available, I don't think it's appropriate to go into detail. But can I endorse what you were just saying there very much, and support and acknowledge that the tremendous effort made by our health and social care teams in very, very difficult circumstances. But as we don't have an agenda item on it just now, it's not appropriate for us to open it up. But I would hope that we would have a full discussion on that once we get that performance report and at the next committee as well.
That's fine. Thanks for keeping me correct in that. But anyway, what I would like to just say, I shall not then go into that, but I will come back to Mr. Fairs with it, and yourself in particular, at the next meeting of it. But would I say that within that, they have been under a great deal of stress because of COVID, because of the virus. And they are to be actually congratulated in doing what they've done. And if they have made mistakes and anything to do with that, they should be actually almost put our arms around them and say to them, well, that may have happened, but you have been done so much work that we congratulate you on doing what you did. And I would like to say to Mr. Fairs that he is again coming into a workforce that many of us know the care workers and the clients, and we respect the work that they're doing. They're doing a tremendous work in our community, and they deserve the utmost support that we can give them.
Thank you very much, Councillor McLean, and I think all members would endorse what you just said. That I see Councillor Norman MacDonald.
Yeah, thanks again, Chair, for letting me in. I'm not a member of your committee, Norrie MacDonald, Skeeter Row. Can I too welcome Mr. Fairs to the Corla and wish him every success in what is a challenging position, and hopefully he can bring a new pair of eyes to it. It's not going to be easy, but it's probably the most crucial element of what it is that we do, looking after our elderly and looking after the services that we provide for them in their time of most need. And I'm more than a lot of people are acutely aware of how stretched the service is at the moment. And I'd just like to ask Mr. Fairs if he can shine a light on the recruitment process just now. We really need to get more carers into the Corla, because the shortage of carers is impacting massively both on the elderly population who require their services and also on the health service who are left at times picking up the burden for our lack of provision of carers, because we're struggling at the moment to recruit. I believe we're struggling to recruit anyway, because I don't think that the many vacancies that were on the books several years ago have been filled in their entirety. And I'm more than acutely aware of this because I have a mother in hospital waiting to get out for a month now because there's not a care package available. So I'm not making a special plea on behalf of myself, but I do know that we don't have as many carers as we would like to have. And I would like if Mr. Fairs could, maybe address this issue, because I think it's what's causing a massive amount of upset in the caring community just now. There's just a lack of carers. So if we can ask Nick if we can have a look at that and maybe report back to us, because we've been in this situation now for 4 years where recruitment has become or appears to be an issue. So I think if we could address the number of carers that we do have, because they're stretched from pillar to post and they're fantastic, the work that they do, but it's very much a case where they are stretched beyond the limits, and I think the recruitment situation should be addressed. If we can look into it and report back, I mean, that's my perception. It might not be the actuality, but I am more than acutely aware that there is an issue with recruitment.
Thank you very much, Councillor MacDonald. I'm not, as I said, we don't have an agenda item, and it would be inappropriate just to go into any detail at the moment. But I think you made your point, and certainly I'm sure most, if not all, members would endorse the concerns you expressed there. So I'm not going to invite Mr. Pearce to comment at this stage, and look forward to his performance report and any other commentary he may wish to introduce into that, and perhaps have a much more a fuller discussion in due course over the challenges facing the service. So
thanks for that, Chair.
Okay, so we'll move on to item 8 on our agenda, and that's the housing funding agreements report by the Director. The report provides details of the proposed housing related funding agreements for 2021-22. Mr. Watson is here to speak to the report.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Good morning, officers. This is our annual report that seeks approval for funding to two of our partner agencies who help us deliver key aspects of our local housing strategy. The two agencies are the local foyer and also the energy advisory aspects of Technology Grant, the local housing agency. Both partners have performed well throughout the last year, despite the obvious challenges presented by the pandemic, and we're pleased with the support they have provided to the department and the Corlia over that period. The report sets out the proposal to continue the funding of £30,000 to the foyer and also £39,000 towards TIG to help with energy advice services. The recommendation sets out that in more detail. Be happy to take any questions members might have about the proposals. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Watson. Two very worthy areas of service support, and have been very sympathetically treated over the years, and certainly with TIG as key partners in the delivery of many of our policies and strategies. Important that we continue that relationship, I feel myself. Colleagues, I see Councillor Charlie Nicholson.
Thank you, Chair. Can I put a point of information to committee and yourself, Chair? Both these organisations are doing a tremendous amount of work and being involved from the council perspective with Foyer and that, and working with the young people. Could I ask, Chair, at a later meeting that a short presentation is given by Foyer to the members of committee, so that members see the work that they're involved with and the ongoing support that is happening within our community, working together with our own department. Could I suggest that, Chair, please?
Thank you very much, Councillor Nixon. I'm happy to accept that as a suggestion, and would look to the officer to see the appropriate time scale for making such a presentation. I think it would be very beneficial, very helpful to the committee to learn more of that. I don't know, Director, who would, but can we take it that I'm happy that would come back to committee, and we'll try to bring that at the earliest opportunity, if that's okay, Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Norman MacDonald.
Yeah, thanks again, Chair. Norman MacDonald Skirrow. I'm not a member of the committee, but I endorse what Charlie's suggested there. We're very grateful. I think everybody in the foyer and other associated support services are grateful for this timely intervention of the Corla in supporting them and ensuring that their ongoing work continues. And I know it's of great succour to the folk who depend on these services, that they're still being provided by foyer, etc. So it would be good for members to be appraised of exactly the work that they do, so they can realise the benefits within our community. And of the support that's necessary to keep them going, because the ongoing costs would have fallen back onto the Corla had we not intervened when we did. So I'm very grateful for the Director and his timely intervention, and for Mr. Burr for listening to the pleas that myself and Charlie and others made to them for supporting Foyer. So I endorse what Charlie says, and I think reporting back on the work that they do by the FOIA themselves would be a great idea for everybody to learn of what it is they actually provide.
Thank you very much, Councillor MacDonald. I agree. I think much of the work that particularly FOIA do is hidden from many eyes, and it is invaluable addressing the concerns of very vulnerable people in our community. So I think that would be beneficial if we all would get some more information on that, and indeed some involvement and our partnership with TIG as well. I'm sure many of you will get circulated the regular information about TIG, but perhaps that is something else at maybe at the member officer working group initially, whether we might get some more engagement as well. So happy that be taken forward, and that be a decision of the committee that it be brought back at an appropriate time when we will have that presentation from FOIA. Committee, are you content with the recommendations in the report of 3.1? Thank you very much for that. We'll move on to item 9 on our agenda, and this is under the fuel poverty. The report on Hebrides Fuel Poverty Strategy and Action Plan 2015-2025. This is a progress update, and Mr. Watson speaks to the report.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, again, this is our annual update on the Fuel Poverty Action Plan. Members will probably recall the action plan has been in place since 2015, and we've been working with a whole range of partner organisations to try and bring forward the various actions set out within the action plan. The appendix of the report sets out the actual 3 themes of the action plan. Theme 1 relates to improving the energy efficiency of houses, which is the key interest of this committee, but we include the information from the other 2 themes as well, just for wider information for members. There's 2 things I'd like to bring to your attention. The first one is the level of fuel poverty in the Outer Hebrides. You may recall from last year's report, a new definition of fuel poverty had been introduced, and the council, along with other partners in the north of Scotland, had campaigned to have a more localised input into it through taking account of rural and island areas. This time last year, we were pleased to report that had been taken on board by the Scottish Government, and that work is currently underway. We expect that aspect of the definition of fuel poverty to be concluded later in 2021. But for the sake of reporting just now, the most up-to-date figures we have in fuel poverty show that 36% of households in the Outer Hebrides are in fuel poverty at the moment. The national average in Scotland is 25%, so you can see we're still significantly higher than the national average. And households in extreme fuel poverty are currently at 23% against the national average of 12%. So there's still quite a significant amount of work needing to be done in the islands to try and address the fuel poverty situation. The second thing I'd like to bring to the attention is the HEAPS programme. As you know, this is the main programme that the Coalition is involved with to try and tackle fuel poverty. That's delivered by Taith na Teagal, our main agent for the HEAPS programme. They've been doing this for many years now and doing it very successfully. Obviously, the pandemic has had an impact on the delivery of that programme due to restrictions on access to households and also implications for the supply chain. But we're pleased that TIG have managed to continue delivering the service. We've highlighted the kind of problem they've had. The funding for the year was 1.5 million, but we've only been able to spend just over £1 million because of the restrictions, which we are actually quite pleased that they've managed to reach that level of spend, given the kind of challenges they've had. Members will probably recall that in previous years, thanks to TIG, we've been able to spend more money than we originally allocated. We always were able to take advantage of additional funds from the Scottish Government, but obviously because of the pandemic, that's not been possible this year. The current year we're on just now, we are expecting to be in a similar situation by the time it concludes, that we won't have been able to spend the full allocation of funding, but we are assured that TIG will be doing their best to try and maximise that spend where at all possible. that was the two areas I was wanting to bring to your attention, Chair. Be happy to take any questions members might have about the fuel poverty definition or the HEAPS update or any aspects of theme 1 within the appendix of the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walton. Again, very important issue requiring to be addressed in the islands. And I think we were, as a committee, as a council, we were concerned about the redefinition of fuel poverty, that it might actually reduce the priority that we have in the islands. But at least it looks at the moment as if that is being maintained, and hopefully there will be supporting measures to help address that. And I think I note in the report that it's at the end of this year that there's going to be the first proper evaluation of the indicators. So we would expect that to come back, I'm sure, to committee in the early new year then. I see Councillor Murray, Councillor Gordon Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just bring members' attention to theme 3, which is reduce the cost of fuel. And there's an item there that says pursue local electricity supply opportunities through creation of Outer Hebrides Energy Supply Company. And I think there's a bit of exploration being done with the Corla and the Stornoway Trust. And I just wanted to ask what's been discussed. Can you supply a bit of meat on the bones for that? Just so I know where the direction of travel is going. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Murray. I suspect some of this may go back to the initial attempts to establish a supply company, which did come into being for a short period of time. I'm sure there may be ongoing discussions. I'm not sure if the Director is able to give any detailed information of that at this stage, but I think it remains certainly an aspiration that all measures to address fuel poverty and the costs of fuel within the islands are addressed. Director, do you want to make any comment?
There isn't a great amount of detail available at this stage, Chairman. As we know, in the main Stornoway Wind Farm, there is an offer of 20% community ownership to the Stornoway Trust. The Cornwall is engaged with the Stornoway Trust to see what the best mechanism is to utilise that 20% ownership to try and retail electricity back into the local market at the lowest possible cost to local consumers. So we think there is a methodology that allows to do that, but that all depends on the Stornoway Wind Farm making a successful application into the Contracts for Difference regime later in this year and the project going forward into implementation. So at this stage, we are waiting to see what the outcome of that Contracts for Difference bid will be, and if the company is successful in that, we'll be working with the Trust to develop the detail behind that. So I would anticipate it wouldn't be until well into next year that we'll be able to hone the detail and bring something more detailed back to committee at that time.
Thank you very much, Director. Did you want to come back, Councillor Murray?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I welcome the Director's contribution and his, clarification on bringing maybe a report back to committee. I think I may, on this issue, follow it up with him separately, if that's okay with himself.
Happy to follow that up, Chairman, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Charlie Nicholson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ian, for the report before us. The question I have, Chair, is to ask Mr. Watson if there's any new support packages coming in for the communities within my own area, and that we managed to get £3,000 to £4,000 for energy vouchers being available for coal, oil, electric, gas. And we did a little bit of work in one or two of my first level areas, and we're finding that over the last 6 months, Chair, that there's an 18% increase in the homes in regards to costs of fuel, etc., with children being at home and people being at home as such, and a number of families have challenges, and the council and one or two other partners along with associations have been supporting with packages. Is there any other new support packages coming in for the fuel poverty stroke energy sector that communities can get through the council? Because it is a very challenging issue just now in my first level areas, Chair, and I'm sure in other members' areas as well.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nicholson. There was a press release, of course, earlier this month about some support for the extra costs in winter fuel. Unfortunately, that scheme was fairly short-lived, and I think it's ending in the 31st of March. But that was simply a referral onto the agency that the Scottish Government have for dealing with these supports. But I don't know if Mr. Watson, do you have anything else to add to that?
Thanks, Chair. Just to make reference to the same scheme you mentioned, locally TIG are authorised to help clients with bids to that fund, but like you're saying, it was a very short-term one. Only there's a very small window of opportunity for that particular scheme. It runs out at the end of this month, but we are keeping our eyes out for anything else that comes forward. Obviously, with the various periods of lockdown through the pandemic, there would have been a significant increase in heating bills through people having to work from home. So so the full information from that isn't available yet, but we're keeping an eye on that to try and see if anything is put in place to try and help people through that. But at the moment, the main one was the one that you made reference to. That's coming to an end at the end of this month. But again, TIG as our agents, they're very good at keeping their eyes open for any particular schemes that are on the horizon. So we can certainly take advantage of the knowledge that they have to bring information back to the committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Watson. Councillor Nicholson, are you still? You want to come back, or is your hand just a legacy?
No, Chair. I wish to come back, please, and thank Ian for that response. But there is a situation, and the council are supporting through their hardship fund. But that's one that is covering a lot of areas. Is there anything we can find out through the department or Mr. Watson to look at being giving some finance available to local community groups to administrate and get out there? Because as I say, Chair, in two of my first level areas, there are major challenges, and there doesn't seem to be any extra money coming in after March to the authority from London or from Edinburgh, and it's from my perspective, and each week different residents are in contact in regards to major pressures paying for fuel. So I'm actually looking for extra finance for the Western Isles and for members to use to support those that have major challenges just now. So I am really concerned when I hear the package is finished at the 31st of March and nothing is coming in to take its place, because these families are under major challenges just now, Chair. So I would ask, as a matter of urgency, as an authority, we engage with Scottish Government or whoever else to access money, because the next 3 months it's still going to be 18% as such for these individuals and these families that are at the coalface, if you like to put it, and pardon the pun there.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nicholson. I think Mr. Watson has indicated that the department will maintain a watch for any opportunities to draw down funding, and with our partners TIG as well, who are very effective at identifying funding sources. So I think if we do that, happy that we make representation just to emphasise the fact, given the high level of fuel poverty in the islands. And yes, I certainly acknowledge that the costs of fuel will continue to affect families. as indeed will the cost of food, as many families find they're at home much more, and with their food bills, every bill has gone up in the period of close down. So I think certainly endorse what you're saying, and I'm sure, as Mr. Watson has said, they will bring back any opportunity for funding to address the fuel poverty issues that you identified. Councillor Steele.
Chair, can I come back on that? Can I suggest, Chair, as a council, the national schemes don't seem to be there at present. Can we look internally to see if finance can be given? And we always get direction from the leader to identify finance if we're putting forward suggestions. I'm led to believe, and it can be checked up, that over the last year there has been a saving in councillors' expenses of about 107,000. If that is the case, could that money be put to the department to help with fuel poverty if it's not used in another area? Because this is a very serious situation we have for individuals and families throughout the Western Isles. I can only take it from my perspective in my first level areas, and it is a real serious situation, folks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nicholson. Chief Executive, if you want to come in.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to look at that, but I do recall the previous Director of Assets, Finance and Resources giving some very clear advice about the best means of supporting people in need, and we'll look back on that. But the comments of Councillor Nicholson are noted, and we'll certainly consider what's been said as far as we can.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barr. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with a lot what Charlie was saying there. It's been a difficult year between COVID and Brexit hitting us now as well. So there's going to be a lot of people in difficult situations. And just in relation to the figures and thanks for the report, Ian, very good report. The figures about 36% of the islands being in fuel poverty, and that's before the new definitions. Does he expect, or is there an assumption that our figures might actually go up, for taking in the islands uplift factor?
Thanks, Chair. It's really hard to say. The new definition is a lot more complicated than the one we'd worked with for many years, where that was looking at a straight, the amount of income, the amount of household income that was being used to pay energy costs. So you could work out fairly quickly if you're under over the 10% threshold that they had there. The new definition is a lot more complicated. It's meant to be more robust. It should give a better idea of the real situation, if you like, but it's not something that could be done quickly. In the past, you could have done an assessment of a household when you're doing a home visit to look at like the work that TIG are doing to the initial advice. You could do that fairly quickly, but it's a lot more complicated now. You're probably talking about things like a handheld device to run the calculations through, so it's not something that can give you an instant output of what the figures would be. So it's really hard to say at this stage. We're hoping that the changes that are being looked at just now will have a more realistic uprate, if you like, of an island situation, and that should give us a better figure. But at this stage, it's really difficult to say whether the figures would go up or down from the 36% just now. But we'll certainly keep the members informed of this, and as soon as we get information from the Scottish Government and other advisory groups, we'll certainly report that to your committee, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Watson. I think, as I said earlier, once the government publishes the report expected at the end of December, no doubt that will be coming back to committee in the early new year, just how we fare in that, and we will have some discussion on that in due course. Okay then, you happy insofar as the committee to note that report? Thank you, committee. We now move on to item 9 on our agenda. This is the Scottish Fire and Rescue performance against the Fire and Rescue Plan for the Western Isles. And I'd like to welcome Mr. Dougie Campbell to his first meeting of the committee. Gavin Hammond, who used to present a report, is currently on internal secondment. and Mr. Campbell will take on the role of local senior officer during the period. I do see a familiar face alongside there. Welcome, Ian. Thank you very much for your attendance, and apologies for the slight delay in getting to the item. So you have members have been circulated with the report, and perhaps one or the other of you will take us through maybe if we highlight exception reporting. And I see before we start, Councillor Convener, you want to?
Thank you, Chair. Just to declare an interest in that, I'm a retained member of staff with the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, but I will remain in the meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Convener, and just remind us to just again to express our appreciation of all the work of the volunteer members on the Fire and Rescue, and indeed under the recent vaccination programme. They have had a very high profile in assisting in the vaccination centre, so our thanks to them for that as well. So I think, is it Ian, are you going to lead on this?
Yes, good morning, Chair. Thank you very much for the warm welcome. And given some of the very, very serious discussions that have taken place thus far in your meeting, it's of great interest to me that the Fire and Rescue Service remain an integral part of your committee. So I welcome the opportunity to speak today. You've already stolen my thunder on one or two items there, Chair. But as is our normal process, I'll give a brief introduction in terms of kind of some overview, and then hand over to Group Commander Campbell for some detail, and as you point out, some just lifting the key points from the report. You've already mentioned Dougie's arrival. Dougie replaces Gavin. Gavin is working on a project which I think will bear tremendous fruit for us, and is already bearing fruit for us in rural Scotland in terms of the recruitment and retention of rural firefighters. I can say unto all the councillors on the call today, I'm really determined as a sponsor of one of the sub-projects of the project he is on, that we will really deliver some vital changes and try and address some of the attrition that we're experiencing in terms of converting applicants into firefighters on station. But if I may place a wee correction in, Chair, all the firefighters in the Western Isles, Orkney and Shetland that I'm responsible for are retained duty firefighters. None of them are volunteers. Something I will also be correcting with another elected member in another chamber some distance from us, who has gone to press to claim. To also express his thanks for the volunteers of the Western Isles. But you touched on the pandemic support there. You know, we have funded the presence of firefighters, and as a recent recipient on Thursday, and still have the so arm to prove it, the process is incredibly slick, and I'm grateful to not just my own staff but the personnel from Her Majesty's Coast Guard and the NHS who are making the experience of patients in the Western Isles attending for vaccination a very, or as pain-free as it possibly can be, a very slick process. So I thank you for your comments on that. In terms of the national process for COVID has, as you might imagine, impacted largely across the service. We have at times lost fire stations to outbreaks and had to do remedial covering moves. Within Western Isles, Orkney and Shetland, we've only lost one, which is Bray in Shetland, and so it's real testament to the observance of the restrictions and the measures we put in place that at no point did we lose any fire stations due to COVID. And again, that's probably linked into the wider compliance of communities in the Western Isles. Two key documents are coming the way of the committee in the next 2 weeks. One is a local plan review that we undertook at the end of 2020. That local plan was published in 2017, ran to 2020, and as a result of COVID, we conducted a light review or a review of that report to see where the journey we travelled. And because the landscape will undoubtedly be different, as we've touched on already in this call this morning, we have decided to refresh and extend the existing local plan, and that again will be shared with the committee going forward. We'll extend that by a year, really to buy us some time to see what the landscape looks like post-COVID or post significant impact of COVID as we, with some optimism, anticipate. The next item really to refer to is the Community Safety Partnership. I'm confident that the arrival of Dougie from Orkney 3 weeks ago, where they have an existing Community Safety Partnership, will allow us to really put some momentum behind the development of that. The lead officer on a day-to-day basis will be Station Commander Ross McRae, as previously identified. We have a draft governance arrangement for that, and we'll be in touch with partners over the next 3 to 4 weeks with a view to moving forward with the Community Safety Partnership. Where it links into existing frameworks is really the kind of key piece of work that we're undertaking just now, and ensuring that it is fit for purpose, meets legislation, and gives us the traction we want in order to improve community safety outcomes across many spheres, such as road safety, safety in the home, water safety, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to hand over to Group Commander Campbell now. I'll take any questions on any aspect of those items I've referred to, but if there's no questions, I'd like to ask Dougie, again welcoming him to the committee. They are a friendly bunch, Dougie, they don't bite, even in person. So if we can hand over to Dougie, and he'll just take us through the report, pointing out a couple of highlights.
Thank you very much, Ian, and thank you very much for correcting me on the professional retained firemen that are in the service. Very much appreciated. And your reference to your own slight moan about your sore arm, I think it just belies the toughness of the firefighter. So, Dougie, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Chair. Thanks for the introduction as well to Area Commander MacLeod, and indeed the kind words within the prayer for all key workers at the start. That was very much appreciated. If I could bring your attention to priority 1, particularly page 5, the accidental dwelling fires element. We've noticed nationally there's an increase in domestic dwelling fires and unfortunately associated deaths through this pandemic. These can be directly related to people working from home and indeed spending in general more time at home. Thankfully, locally, we've not seen this increase, and indeed, as you'll see in the table, we've had a decrease in reported accidental fires, dwelling fires. I'd like to attribute that to the local and national safety campaigns, where we've highlighted an increased risk and educated the homeowners. We've also continued locally to carry out the home fire safety visits for our most vulnerable community members as well through the pandemic. If I could then direct you to priority 2, starting on page 6 and the detail on page 7, non-domestic fires. You'll see a small increase there. We've had 3 in the recording period, which is October to December. The 2 of that instance were very, very small, non-protracted incidents where the fire was contained in the compartment of origin and extinguished on arrival. Our crew's involvement was basically the safety of personnel at the scene and then to ensure the property was safe until arrival of the key holders. So thankfully no heavy involvement from the fire service. The other incident was a small garage fire. Obviously any increase in numbers is uncomfortable for us, but given the size of the incidents, I'm not overly concerned by that very, very small increase when we're only talking about 1 or 2. Rather have none, but that's where we are with that one. If we could move on to priority 3, and in particular the table on page 9, which is the recruitment and the availability table. There's a couple of stations that kind of like to bring to attention, really, particularly the second appliance at Benbecula, and highlight we're currently developing a strategy for Benbecula to include a community safety initiative and recruitment drive to increase establishment levels within the station. Obviously, we're going to wait until the pandemic is at a stage that we. We've also progressed the partnership agreement with HILE for improved and additional operational response within Benbecula, which will go beyond even if we get that pumped to a more happy state where we have it turning out on a more regular basis and available indeed. Further on recruitment, the area commander touched on the support team that's in place now with Group Commander Hammond leading. The input Gavin's got on that shouldn't be understated with the knowledge he's got of the Western Isles and Orkney and Shetland indeed, and I've no doubt at all there'll be noticeable changes coming our way in recruitment retention. A key factor of it is the employee experience, and probably also be looking at is the benefits to employees, including pay and conditions. And I've got no doubt, as the expression Ian used, it will bear fruit, and I've got no doubt there'll be short-term gains there and wins, and indeed to go along with the long-term objectives that group are looking at as well. Ian also alluded to the trial we're going to do, a 12-week trial in Wales that we can go into more detail maybe at another meeting. That will definitely increase that rate of recruitment for us in the Western Isles. Finally, for me, on priority 4, on the unwanted fire alarm signals, if you have a look at the tables, we basically reflect the national picture on this with a decrease in UFAS incidents in comparison to the previous recording periods, and that's due to lack of human interaction at the affected premises. What we're currently doing, SFRS, are working with industry experts, manufacturers, and key stakeholders, including NHS and education, to safely drive this figure down further through engagement sessions where we're providing statistics and projections and options to decide the future attendance for these UFAS incidents. So hopefully within the next 6 months, we'll have a different policy in place for attending these, which will undoubtedly drive these numbers down even further in a safe manner. That captures the elements I was really wanting to highlight from the report, but happy to get any questions on that.
Thank you very much indeed, Dougie, for that run through, and it's encouraging the information and performance that we note there. I also note and welcome the proposal to get going with the community safety initiative and multi-agency on that. I'm sure Councillor Nicholson, who often raises this as a concern, will be pleased to hear of that as well, and we look forward to the fruits of that particular initiative going forward. I'm seeing a couple of members want to come in. Councillor Norman MacDonald, Skid Row, and then the convener.
Yeah, thanks again, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee, and can I extend my personal appreciation of the excellent services provided by Ian and Gavin and the team, particularly with regard to the recent COVID inoculation scheme of the Cabernet. Their services have been invaluable. I'm in awe always of the protection afforded to us by these great guys. But on a completely separate note, is it necessary for us always? And I've been at meetings before, and I won't mention who was with me at the meeting, Ian, where they've been asked to attend and they've sat and they've been ignored and the meeting finished. Now we're taking up these guys' time, and I'm sure in the hour they've been sitting listening to us prattle on about used cars, they could have been using that more constructively, keeping us safe. So is it necessary for them to wait until the middle or the end of a meeting for them to be called to speak? Could we not ask them to speak at the very beginning of the meeting so they could get on and do what it is that experts are doing instead of having to listen to us waffle? I think it would be a good idea if we could take them early in the proceedings so that they don't have to sit through this nonsense sometimes.
Thank you very much for that. I think in pre-COVID life, if we can remember that far back, we did have an identified slot for the fire and rescue service and the police to come in. Unfortunately, colleagues, it's very difficult for us to predict how long you will prattle on and when to set that time. But
take them at the beginning. Take them at the very beginning.
I certainly note what you're saying, and that is one option that we can do that. And I'm sure committee services will take a note of that. And I'm sure with some of the items that are on the agenda, those in attendance from the emergency service can get some benefit from that input themselves too. And that is a form of engagement for them as well. But yes, I certainly take note of that, and we have discussed it previously, and perhaps taking it early in the agenda might be an answer to what you're suggesting there. Thank you very much for that, Councillor MacDonald. Convener, did you want to come in? I'm not sure which Councillor MacDonald we have there. No, is that? I'm saying, is that? Is that the convener or Councillor? Convener. Yeah. Convener, do you want to come in? If you're trying to speak, it's on mute. Oh, I see. Maybe it's just the two. Oh.
It's not very often that happens, to be perfectly honest. No, I'd just like to ask either Ian or Dougie, in terms of the table there that shows the recruitment figures. I think it's on page 9, or the staffing complement as it is at the moment. And again, using my dodgy arithmetic, I think there are 42 job opportunities there in terms of having the full staffing complement, which we obviously don't have, with 42 people light, as it were, in terms of firefighters. And I think we should all, as members, and not just those who are involved in the fire service, should be encouraging people to come forward for what is generally quite a rewarding thing to do, but also there are many benefits for people who want to join as well. And I'd just like to ask either Ian or Dougie what their view is on that, and what we can do to support the work of the recruitment within the retained fire service in the islands.
Chair, if I may, I'll give way to Dougie in a second, but I have much experience on this very topic within the chamber. We have reached out and asked our esteemed colleagues in the council to support us, and councillors to support us in spreading the word. And we are absolutely determined to fill every fire station to the capacity that we need in order to deliver that 24/7, 365 service. And it does represent a financial boost to some very rural parts of the country across the whole of Scotland. That small contribution might be the difference between a family staying in an area when allied to another job or another couple of smaller jobs such as crofting. And we're really working hard in the background to try and promote that. But I think there is this common misconception. One common misconception is about the payment element. We acknowledge we're not telling the world that we pay firefighters on fire station a minimum of £3,000 to £4,000 a year to attend training and keep themselves prepared and keep our equipment prepared. And then on top of that, there is initiatives such as home fire safety visits. There's initiatives such as community safety activity, talking to schools, all of which we pay for. And clearly over the last number of weeks, we've supported financially, we've supported the NHS on a daily basis. We are not very good at selling that concept, and that's something that's going to improve as part of this new initiative that Gavin's leading on, and he has clearly acute awareness on that. So I would really encourage us to talk to people about the fire service, promote us as an employer of choice. We're flexible, we're friendly. There's lots of skills they'll pick up within the context of the fire and rescue service. But we recognise that there are some challenges. And one of the things that Dougie mentioned was this new initiative that I proposed in December. I now lead on for Scotland, which is the pre-engagement piece. And that's about getting somebody who's interested and turning them into a firefighter 12 or 16 weeks later by keeping them constantly engaged, giving them a fitness programme to support their development, so that when they come to the fitness assessment, actually they're prepared, they're ready, and they're not intimidated by the tasks that we set them. So we want to get them onto fire station participating. And we lose 45% of applicants across Scotland by poor engagement by the service, leaving it too long in between letters and notification, and the fitness assessment that depletes our numbers of applicants greatly. So we're really working hard to try and do that. So I welcome the reference from Watch Commander / Convener MacDonald, and it's again, it's an appeal to councillors to please support us. And I know I've had great support from many, including the outgoing deputy chair, who I'll be sorry to see go, and I welcome Ray into the team. But we need you guys to please continue to promote that. And we're looking at innovative ways, linking into with directly local authorities onto their websites and so on, in order to try and plug some of the gaps that we have. But the final thing is, the people who are in those fire stations, they go an extra mile all the time. I've referenced Nest before, who provided something like 92% coverage with 7 people at some point in 2019. So we know we have people that we need to bring people in, but we also know we have got unbelievably committed and determined firefighters on stations who are willing to do that bit extra to protect the people of the Western Isles.
Yes, indeed, Ian, and thank you very much for that. And certainly the high profile that the fire service had in the vaccination programme did nothing if not improve that profile in the community, and the cheerfulness of the firefighters in undertaking that in some awful weather at times and remain cheerful throughout. And I've heard nothing but compliments about the way that they conducted the work there efficiently and with great cheer. So all credit to them for that, and they did a great service to the reputation there. Dougie, do you want to come back and?
Yeah, it's just really to add to what the area commander said there as well. I mean, we had I think the running total is 187 engagements we've had at the COVID vaccination centres, and that was also through the spate conditions that we experienced in early February, the middle of February, with the Moorburn season, and the firefighters showed that commitment, dedication, professionalism throughout that period as well. The recruitment side that the convener touched on as well, it's obviously the landscape's changed somewhat for us as well, with people now working from home, and it looks like that's possibly a method going forward as well, that more people will be working from home. So my hopes are that there'll be more people available to us once we get out the other side of COVID. They'll continue to work from home. That maybe wasn't an option for us previously. And again, I reach out to everybody at the meeting to identify anybody that they think falls into that category for us, that they maybe never considered joining the retained fire service before, but now it is a viable option for them, now that they're not maybe possibly driving into Stornoway to work, etc. So again, it's an option that may be open to us going forward.
Thank you very much for that. I've got a couple of members waiting to come in, Councillor Charlie Nicholson and then Councillor Paul Steele.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome the report, and welcome to Dougie to his first meeting, and like all of us, looking forward to working with him and working along with Ian. The convener kind of picked up one of the points that I was going to bring up, but I'm going to link it in the importance of getting information across in regards to getting fire personnel, but also safety information. And I would suggest to Ian and Dougie that the doors would be open in using the community Facebook pages and setting up a link directly with these Facebook pages throughout the Western Isles, and that's getting directly to our community as such. I welcome very much the community safety plan and look forward to that going forward with the last time was 27 members, and to take it on board. And I'll just leave it like that and thank them for all the work that they're doing throughout the Western Isles. Excellent and very supportive work and caring work for our community. So thank you very much indeed for the report.
Thank you very much for these comments, Councillor Nicholson and Councillor Steele. Can I just confirm, as the convener, do you want to come in after Councillor Steele? Your hand is still up anyway. If you are, I'll bring you back after Councillor Steele.
No, Chair, I think I've got a confession to make. I walked away from the iPad a wee while ago, and my 2-year-old granddaughter pressed a button and the hand is still stuck there. So I'm going to have to take some executive action on that. I apologise for that.
Very good. I think we all have these domestic difficulties throughout this very difficult times. Councillor Steele.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that last point. Yeah. Just want to say thanks to Dougie and Ian for the report. Very interesting as usual, and I just want to put out my thanks for their teams, for the work that they've done, especially through the Moorburn. I mean, it was pretty horrendous at times there, and again, I think Ian touched on it, the fact that they were out covering this Moorburn, and the very next morning they were there helping out the COVID vaccine centres. It showed the dedication and the work these guys put in is fantastic. Really interested to hear what Dougie was saying about the unwanted fire alarm signal thing. I know that's probably a bugbear for you guys, having to go out to premises when there's unwanted fire alarms. So yeah, the development of that will be really appreciated. And the community safety partnership, just touching what Charlie said there, really looking forward to that going forward. But my question just relates to the recruitment and staffing levels. Just in a table, the last column says recruit applicants. Is that people who are currently in the system? And it's a lot of the stations are staying kind of steady, but I know you've recruited quite a lot. So are you happy enough with the ones that are leaving, the ones that are coming in? Are you okay with those levels? Obviously more would be better, but so yeah, just the recruit applicants column. I just wasn't sure on that. Thank you.
Yes. While Dougie's scanning the report to just distill an answer, what I do know is that we've got point of entry testing day coming up at the end of April for those who are in the pot. And the last update, and I'm hoping Dougie's got the recent figure, but we had 8 for Lewis and Harris and 8 for US Benbecula and Barra. So these are good numbers and might just support the perspective that Dougie said about more people working from home and a higher profile. And an incident such as, for example, fire crews providing water in Benbecula when the pumps froze are again high profile incidents where we've stepped in to support communities, which is our #1 mandate. And perhaps that's reflected in an upturn in applicants, but I have to stress we have to get them through the fitness test, we have to get them through their interview, we have to get them through the tests that are in front of them, and that's where the new initiatives are keys. But I'll give way to you just to perhaps give an update on the latest numbers.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, to answer the question, the recruit applicants the applicants are currently on the system for us to bring in. So this was the live document as of October to December, and the numbers are still the same going forward. So that's still the numbers that we've got for the stations. To answer your question, are we comfortable with that numbers? The truth is, no. I'd really like to increase the establishment levels within the stations. Legacy Services had this as 12. If we could get all the stations to a 10 for the single pump stations, I'd find that a far more comfortable position to be in. It's certainly a key priority for me when I'm here is to increase that numbers within the stations, acknowledging the fact that it is problematic. But we will try everything we can. We've got banners that have just been ordered and purchased and are making their way to Western Isles as we speak. The new style recruitment banners that hopefully will help alongside the social media Facebook page that was talked about as well. And word of mouth can't be underestimated about how the impact that can have of encouraging people and our ability to get out there and actually speak to the communities and explain the impact they can have as retained firefighters, and as Area Commander already talked about, is the financial implication to it. We don't sell that enough. We don't explain enough that there is an option there to make a reasonable income on a monthly basis from also assisting the community. So that's a point we'll be pushing when we're out speaking to communities.
Thank you very much for that, Doug. I take it these are legacy hands from still from the convener there. I think it must be. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for a very full report and for your willingness to remain with us to answer these questions as well. The report is there before members for noting. Thank you very much. Now, there's another. We normally only have one blue lamp service report, but as members may recall, we had some technical difficulties when we tried to connect with the Chief Inspector Ian Graham last committee. So I'm ruling this item as an urgent item so we can consider it. Now, the report itself, it may not be in this agenda, but it was circulated for the previous committee. It is in this one. Oh, I beg your pardon, yeah. I wasn't sure if it was. So, thankfully, I see, Ian, you're there, so hopefully you can hear us and you see us, and welcome to the meeting. Apologies for the slight delay in getting to you, but never good to see you now anyway. So we have your report. If you'd like to take us to the key points in the report, and then we'll see if members have any questions or comments to make on it.
Morning, Chair. Thank you. I'd just like to add my welcome to Group Commander Campbell as well. I've worked with him in the past, and also pass my thanks to Group Commander Gavin Hammond for the work he did leading YPEG. So I think it's really beneficial. He's taken a lot of stuff forward. And also, as Ian McLeod said, the work of the Coast Guard as well. I think we've got to acknowledge that, as well as the Fire and Rescue under their area commander, Macaulay. I think they've been excellent. They assist us, as to the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, throughout the year at numerous incidents we won't be able to respond to competently if we didn't have the support of them. So I just wanted that to be put on record. Thank you. Okay, you've had the report since last January. So I'll just the key points. Road safety, obviously our #1 priority. We did the #1 complaints on road safety. It always comes up in the priorities for all the policing plans, whether at national or local level. This one report is only until the 30th of November. The full report for the year will come out at the June meeting. The key points are, obviously there was no fatalities up until November, but unfortunately there was one on the 24th of December. Obviously our thoughts to the family in relation to that and those that are involved from the emergency services and attended. So that's still under investigation, so I won't comment on that one. The key points are careless driving reports and dangerous driving reports have gone up dramatically. We've gone from 30 to 70 over the same period. So that's a lot of people reporting concerns about motorists during the period of COVID and since the lockdown started to ease. And also insurance within the islands. We've had a significant increase in people driving without insurance. That's one of the points we're raising nationally as well in relation to the that can be done with the Motor Insurance Bureau to raise awareness for them. One of the most often complained about issues is antisocial behaviour of motorists within the town especially. So over the period we had 35 antisocial behaviour orders issued to some drivers, and we seized the number of cars for these offences and also insurance offences. So that's some of the key points there. Preventative wise, we have a really good operational working group working with the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service and the local authority, and we have a strategic group looking at casualty reduction again with the same partners. We've had a campaign over the winter time, thanks to Councillor Nicholson for his support with the Be Safe, Be Seen, keeping safe on the roads, and that ties in with work in relation to the community safety aspects, which have already been touched upon. We've done a lot of advertising in relation to high vis, the amount of people that are out cycling, walking or running out on our roads and taking advantage of the excellent scenery and the outside in the Western Isles. So we encourage people just to be safe and be seen over the time, and that'll be continued next year in terms of high visibility bands, high visibility bags and some lights. So we'll take that forward through the various groups as well that we're working on.
Why?
I'm not too sure if that was the question or just someone quite happy at the report.
Me. So in between phoning me earlier and
you happy for me to continue, Chair?
Apologies for that. I'm not sure where that spurious intervention came from. Yes, I mean, I think it was just about inviting comments or whatever. Were you in? Are you able to hear me okay, Chief Inspector Graham?
Yes, sorry, I was just so you want me to continue with the meeting. So priority 2, serious organised crime. A lot of the work's been ongoing in relation to the partnership approach. We have the NHS, and as the Air Commander McLeod will know, we have colleagues from the Fire and Rescue Service doing some of the divisional meetings. So we sit down and just look to see if any issues within the Western Isles, and also linking into any issues in relation to the drug supply. We obviously have a really good partnership with the Alcohol Drug Partnership, and they're supporting us in terms of the police drugs dog. There was a significant increase at the start of lockdown in terms of drugs coming to the island through the courier and post office service. We're starting since the last lockdown as well to see an increase in that coming in again. So we're looking to see what can be done in relation to that. So the number of those involved in the supply has also increased. So we've got we're doing 1 and 3 going in at the moment, and our colleagues in our investigation department are also working away in relation to how we can do that. But I say we've got good support from partners with that going forward, and we'll hope to get a full update in relation to the year's activity, and we'll get an input there in relation to the benefits we've had from the funding towards the drug stock at that time. In terms of acquisitive crime, sort of the highlights are shoplifting has decreased obviously in relation to all the shops going down. The biggest concern is frauds. Frauds have increased within the islands from 17 over the same period last year to 43. It's been raised at various committees and raised with various councillors as well in the past to fraud prevention advice. This is significant sums of money have been taken from people's accounts that affects their mental health, their life, their stability in terms of going forward. So we're trying to raise the awareness of it through whatever means we can. We had some good ideas at the Adult Protection Committee from the Group Commander Campbell, and we've got some colleagues from the corporate comms in the council seeing what else can be done, including doing some interviews on the radio just to kind of get to all groups, as many as possible. We've done newsletters, we've done leaflets at the vaccination centre. So all I can ask is you pass the message. If anyone any concerns, can contact either Police Scotland, Trading Standards or Citizens Advice, and just raise the concerns they have as well. So please pass the message, use social media, use whatever means you can just to get the message across. It's one of the biggest prevention activities we're having at the moment, as we do see the significant effect it has on people's lives. And the best way forward is just like raising awareness. And if someone's got any doubt, just to contact the police, and we can deal with it, or contacts in Trading Standards of the bank in relation to it. The next one's antisocial behaviour. We've obviously have our working group started up again within the town itself, Stornoway, in relation to concerns raised. A lot of this about minor acts of vandalism or minor acts of antisocial behaviour towards members of the public. So the partnership group hopes to go forward in relation to alternatives for some of the individuals involved, and just see what we can do. Obviously with COVID, a number of premises aren't open. We don't have the normal alternatives for some of the younger ones to do with the Bridge Centre, the Sports Centre, after school clubs. So we're just seeing what else we can do. Really good support from the street pastors and also from the Action from Children team, and good support from the Community Learning Department as well in relation to just see what we can do with individuals to try and deter them from behaviour. Vandalism is spread throughout the islands. There's no one specific hotspot. Obviously, the town gets more just of the population, but it's from Nest all the way down to Barra, and it's something that's previously mentioned by the director and also other councillors to do with the community awareness and community ownership. If you have a concern about what someone's doing, please report it or contact ourselves or speak to the individual. So we're always looking to do that. One of the biggest issues with the violence is significant increase of assaults on police officers. We've gone up from, I think it's 24 to 54. So over the last year, especially during COVID, our island has suffered the worst in terms of officers being assaulted. They've been spat on, attacked with weapons. We've officers have received injuries. We've had to put a report into my divisional commander in terms of why there's been an increase in the islands, and I think it's one of the really concerning things in relation to officers retained on duty. Officers have to deal with these incidents and deal with mental health, alcohol, drugs, and other terms of behaviour. So we are concerned about why there's been an increase. So I just wanted to highlight to you, this has gone up further here than in Shetland or Orkney. Often it's repeat individuals and put before the court. So it's just a concern I have at the moment in terms of what's happening with the officers. Protecting vulnerable people is probably the next one. The biggest one there is obviously the sexual crimes. There's been an increase in that for reports, but domestic abuse reports have been down, which is a concern to us. We've been working with partners in the Violence Against Women and Children's group just to see what we can pick up any trends and any patterns of why it's happening within the islands, but it's not a national picture. So it's just smaller numbers, but we're always looking to make sure people have the reassurance that they can contact us or any other agency, including Women's Aid, and just to see about going forward with that. In terms of the hate crimes, we still have very small numbers in the islands. It's still comparatively, compared to other areas, it's a really good place to live. The numbers are very low. We usually just talk about a handful, and we usually get on top of them quite quickly if we have any concerns raised with us. It is very welcoming areas for individuals from other parts of the world, so we continue to welcome that. And it's also went through a national inspection, and no concerns were raised in terms of what was happening within our division. The missing person activity has come down dramatically, probably just due to COVID. The numbers have dropped down, and we're quite delighted with that. We just have to monitor that as we go forward. But a lot of that's down to the good work with our colleagues in the local authority and in other agencies for stepping in quite quickly when concerns are raised about individuals. So we're very welcoming for that. The final one, the public order and terrorism, that's always on everyone's mind. We've got the contest issues that we have to look at, and the preventative work that's done by some of the local authority officers has been commented upon nationally, has been to a high standard. So we're quite delighted with it.
We'll just have to.
I think that's Ian McLeod speaking there.
That man never ceases to speak. Ian, if you can hear us, can you make sure that you're Ian McLeod, if you can make sure that your microphone is muted, please. Apologies for that, other Ian. Do please continue.
No, it's not a problem at all. Quite delighted to have the support of Ian to all our meetings, so if he wants to continue, I'd be quite happy with that. No, it's just a quick run through of the bids. I know apologies again for what happened to the technical in January. The full report will come in June, so it's just to give case for yourself, Chair, and the other councillors to come forward with any questions they have and see what we can do to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Inspector. I mean, it's much of the report is very encouraging in terms of the very low numbers that we have. However, as you did indicate, some of the trends are increasing numbers, and although the numbers are relatively small, it's nevertheless something that I'm sure you will be taking a focus on and trying to address these things. Thank you very much for going through the report in the detail you have, and it's always very welcome to see that, and it's always a good indicator of just the pulse of our community is at any particular time, and it does reflect a period going back over quite a number of months, of course. Colleagues, I see Councillor Nicholson, Councillor Finnegan, and then Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Nicholson first.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chief Inspector, for the report on that. It's a wee bit sad to hear about the increase in attacks, and I think all members and community should take this head on and take this issue on board with our communities and that. What I want to come to is because our report locally is excellent, and we bring up many points under the community safety local meetings we have with the Chief Inspectors, so there's nothing from that there. But 101, I have to bring this up again. The 101 call centre over the last few months from residents and that within my area has been very challenging, and I've had to phone in a couple of times myself, and the initial information at the start of the phone call, it's like the Flying Scotsman. It's just so speedy, you can't pick up the websites and other things, etc. And we know they're busy, we know it's a COVID period, etc. But there's been a few times some of my residents have phoned in and they just didn't get through at all in any way. But it's more the engagement at the very start of the 101 call, where you just cannot pick up what the gent or the lady is saying with the information to contact this website and contact that and contact the next thing. It's too fast, it's got to slow down, and I've had 4 senior citizens that have phoned in, and after the initial brief at the start, they've had to put the phone down because it just confused them completely. I know we were meant to meet, I think it was about 9 months ago, Chief Inspector, with members from Glasgow, but they couldn't come up because of the ongoing situation. But it's something we really need to take on board and improve the communication. I would rather personally, and I know some of my community would rather, that they would go back to having the contact direct with yourselves in Stornoway. I'm not sure what other members feel in their own areas, but that's what I'm getting from my Residents Association and others in relation to contacting through 101. So there is a challenge there, Chief Inspector.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nicholson. If we take the other members in first and come back to the Chief Inspector, Graham, then. I think I would add to Councillor Nicholson's concerns about just the telephone access. That is one thing that is, I think, not been an improvement, although there have been many other improvements. So I think we'll come back to that one. Councillor Finnegan, I think, next, and then Councillor Mitchell.
Thanks, Chair. It was really just to commend Ian on the movement of PC Davy Fraser down to Harris permanently, and he's made quite a big impression already within the community, and especially in the element of the scams thing, where he's been meeting with community groups and really putting the word about and encouraging the community to actually put the word out to each other and to actually if these scam phone calls are coming through. So it's just really just to commend Davy's work already since he's arrived.
Thank you very much, Councillor Finnegan. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. John Mitchell, Harrison, South Lochs. Good morning, everybody. Again, I would like to commend it's good to have fire and police together personnel. The reports are excellent. Councillor Finnegan's stolen a little bit my thunder because I was going to add my own particular thanks for David Fraser's engagement. Not only has he come down and certainly looked very seriously at a serious issue of scamming vulnerable and elderly people out of many thousands of pounds in Harris and I'm sure elsewhere in the Western Isles, and that has almost been reduced to zero through his own particular efforts. And I think he obviously a great commendation for that. But his engagement also at the variety of local committees also is something that I think is very highly commendable. I know it wasn't easy for him when he was living in Stornoway and so on, but now that he's resident in Tarbert, could you pass on our commendation that you know, most of the committees I attend, he's been there as well. I'd also, just moving quickly away to the main topic of my question, the main issue is with regard to the fire service. And I would also reiterate my appreciation on behalf of the community of Harris, and I saw it at first hand with the recent moor burn. Now, you know, I remember in 2020 we had significant moor burns throughout Harris and elsewhere, but certainly in Harris, which almost caused a life-threatening situation in the Glen, and more recently, and at the same time, property damage as well. More recently, this situation whereby the fires were considerably removed from the main road and made it very, very difficult for personnel to respond without, in many occasions, putting their own life in some considerable danger. Now, I wrote last year in 2020 to the Crofton Commission, to the police, I'm sure Mr. Graham will remember that, and the fire department. It's not an easy situation by any manner of means, but you know, I wrote then to see if there is something we can do to try and ameliorate the situation. And it seems that whatever was done has fallen on deaf ears, because the situation this year was almost as bad as it was last year, and a house almost went up in fire this year, but for the gallant efforts of the firefighters in Harris. And my question basically is, look, it happened in 2020, there was a repetition in 2021. Can we get, what joined up thinking can we do to try to avoid the same situation happening in 2022? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mitchell. Can I maybe just go back to Chief Inspector, and then I'll take Paul Steele in after that. And, so Ian, do you want to answer the issues that have been raised?
Okay, thanks, Chair. In relation to Councillor Nicholson's tweets about the 101, you know, that is something that features quite heavily from complaints from all the islands and certain parts of Highland. So what I'll do is I'll email Councillor Nicholson just off table and get all the points that he's raised there and the concerns he's got from his community, and I can feed back that into the Chief Superintendent that runs that particular area and highlight the issue that the Councillor pointed out with the meeting that was supposed to go ahead last year in relation to the discussion with some of the people who were looking to review the scope of the 101 system. But there is some new systems in place within it to do with filtering. So if a call does come in, they will try and put you to the appropriate department or appropriate agency to deal with. So maybe it is the speed that they're trying to do that just to deal with other calls that's causing concern. So I can take that off table and raise it with him through Councillor Nicholson. Thank you to Councillor Finnegan in relation to Davy Fraser and Councillor Mitchell. He's been trying to do a lot of work within the community as well as having to be called to Stornoway at times, so I'll pass my thanks back to him. In relation to Moorburn, we have currently 3 ongoing criminal investigations within Lewis, Harris and the US in terms of some of the fires that were set, so obviously I can't comment too much on some of the individual ones, but I'm sure with Group Commander Campbell and that we can get together and look to see how we do preventive activity going forward for next year as well. I'm sure we'd welcome their support and their guidance, and also tying with the Crofton Commission as well. So I'll take an action as well to get in touch with them and keep Councillor Mitchell updated for that one, if that's okay with yourselves, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ian. I'll just take Councillor Steele now. Paul?
Thank you, Chair. Just in relation to COVID, obviously there's new legislation coming, and I'm just wondering about compliance and issuing tickets. You know, are we good or bad in the Western Isles in terms of the numbers that are sticking to it? And I know it's, you know, just obviously won't be in the policing plan because it's a new situation. I just wonder will there be a reference to it in the full report in June? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. Yes, COVID has been obviously challenging for all agencies. When the start of lockdown last year, we noticed a dip in calls over the first month, and after that, business as usual for the police as well as the COVID-related calls. Obviously, the Chief Constable has made it quite clear it's a public health emergency, and we're there to provide sort of guidance initially. You know, it's quite unique legislation, but it's been brought in for the emergency. So we are still issuing tickets. We are still going through the enforcement phase with the tickets. It's individuals who might normally come to our attention for other matters that are getting the tickets. We are seeing regular calls coming in. We're usually averaging probably 45 calls a day from people concerned. So we are calling at people's houses to find out why they are there, speaking to people in vehicles if someone raises a concern about them. So, and supporting CalMac for the excellent work that they're doing down at the ferry terminal. So it's an ongoing matter. The legislation is always changing. We've really good support from the environmental health in terms of licensing and the various businesses. So I just want to acknowledge that. And we've worked quite closely with other partners as well about how we can enforce it. So we will have numbers for the June meeting. Also, there's some headlines recently about some individuals getting 4 or more tickets and they're quite hefty fines. So we can have more detail for the June meeting and provide the assurance it will be in that. But if anyone has any concerns, they can always contact 101 or myself in relation to what's happening within the islands, and I'll provide some more data at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, and I think certainly we will look forward to that full report at our June meeting. Councillor Ray Mackenzie, I think we'll make this the last input for this report.
Thank you, Chairman. And thanks, Ian, for the very good report. Obviously, there's 1 or 2 issues there, but generally pretty good. I still find the main problem that's reported to myself anyway is speeding in the town. And later on this week, of course, at transportation, there is a proposal for the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in the town. I know this affects mostly streets that probably there wouldn't be much speeding on anyway. And there are certain other streets in the town which definitely there is speeding of, you know, considerably more than the 30-mile-an-hour limit. And I wonder what your own reaction is to the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, and how this will be actually, you know, that's difficult enough at the present time, but what are your own feelings about the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit? Thank you.
I just wonder, Councillor Mackenzie, I appreciate your interest in this, but it is a matter for the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, the pros and cons of that, and perhaps it would be best to remit questions in regard to that to that committee. But I think members have expressed concerns in the past, and I'm sure Chief Inspector Graham is aware of these concerns as well. But certainly, I think offline members can have discussions on that. But I think for the purposes of this committee, we're really simply looking at the performance, reflecting back on the reports that we have before us. So thank you for that, Mr. Mackenzie. But I do think it's perhaps within the remit of our committee. If there are no other points, the report before us is for noting. Thank you very much, Ian, for your patience with us, and thank you very much for being so willing to answer the questions. So that report is noted, and thank you for your attendance, Ian, as well. That takes us on to reports outstanding. And I note that we had an intention of having a report on the library services coming back for various reasons, the member of the working group has not had the opportunity to meet on that, and there were some difficulties in officers compiling an interim report, and they did come to me, and I did say that I think we would prefer to have that discussion within the member of the working group and with members from Education, Sport and Children's Services prior to the full report coming back. And I believe also there's still not clarity on the national strategy for the library services, which is a further factor that's delayed the complete report. So that report is now intended to come back, I think, at the June series, in the expectation that all of that information will have been derived by then. The other reports are, as you see there, and many have been already addressed. So permits me to just thank you for your attendance, and apologies for the slight length of the meeting today, but it was important, I think, that we give members and the services reporting to the committee every opportunity to present the reports in a full way. So that being the case, thank you again then. So the next scheduled meeting of the committee will be on 15th of June, and thank you for your attendance.